All right, so as we go through, just some basic terminology, and some of you should probably have already be familiar with some of this, but UI, I have that marked on the board behind me. That stands for user interface. And that is a computer term that is commonly used no matter what type of software program you're using, no matter what type of machinery or piece of equipment. A lot of things nowadays are controlled by computers and technology, and they all have some type of what's referred to as a UI, which is the user interface. How you and I interact with that technological gadget or gizmo is important. And sometimes user interface is pretty simple and self-explanatory, rather intuitive. Other times it's not so much. I will say when we get into some of the other CAD software, like when we get into Inventor, if we get there, or one of the other CAD programs, it's a little bit more user-friendly, I think, in some ways than AutoCAD is. So, but everybody has their preferences, and of course, you'll be able to learn how to do this in both. So give me a second here. Let me share my screen. So I have to get into this right screen. All right. All right, now you should be seeing right now the interface between the web app of AutoCAD on my screen. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of other terms that we need to kind of know and understand. So we talked a little bit last time about the views and making sure that you were in model space. We discussed layout and what layout is, that is only for when we're creating working drawings. This is at the very, very end of the process. For you, everything that you're going to be doing will be in the model view. So this is where we're drawing at everything. We'll talk more about these other tabs, the properties, object properties, the layers properties, the blocks, and X references later on as we get more into it. For right now, I just want you to concentrate on model view, but we do want to get into right here what we refer to as panels. So we have 3 panels over here. So I've got the draw panel first. I'm going to write these down because these are things that you need to be familiar with. So we have the draw panel. We have right next to the draw panel on another tab, we have the annotate panel. And then next to that, we have what's referred to as the modify panel. So when I put my cursor on each of those tabs, the modify panel. Now, we're talking about this terminology because it's important, especially as we deal with this remotely and as we go back and forth. You need to know the language so that when I say it's the draw panel or the modify panel, you'll know exactly what I mean, and you'll know exactly where to go to on the screen when you need to draw something. So now you'll notice as I click on each of these, inside each of these panels are different tools. So we have several different tools in the draw panel. We have several different tools in the annotate panel. So, and we have several different tools in the modify panel. So each one of these panels hides our tools. So as an example, and what we will start out with this week is just kind of going over our different types of tools in the draw panel. So everything we do this week is going to be related to the draw panel. So you'll notice I have a line tool. So that's one of the tools that I have. I also have a circle tool. I have a rectangle tool. There's arc tools. You'll notice a lot of these are some of our geometric shapes, and we have to kind of understand a little bit about our geometry and some terminology there. So So I'm going to get more into these drawing tools here in a few minutes, but I want to go over some other terms and some things that you need to know about setting up your web app here when you're drawing. So I'm going to want to go down to the right hand side of the screen here. So, and you'll notice I have several different buttons over here too. So we have what is called OSnap. Now, I'm going to define this for you. OSnap basically stands for an object snap. And anytime you have one of these that has an arrow next to it, that means there's more to it. So right now, object snap is turned off. If I turn it on, notice I get the blue highlight around. So notice I've also got this O track, which stands for object track. You've got ortho mode and we've got polar mode here as well. And I can turn these on or off. So for these very first projects this week, I'm going to want you to have all of those turned off. If you're playing around with this and you get these turned on, it can kind of really mess you up on some things if you're not familiar with how to use them. But I'm going to click on this arrow next to object snap and notice here's where we have to become familiar with some of our geometric terminology. So some of the object snaps, of course, are endpoints. Notice there's a check mark there. So I'm going to uncheck that to turn that off. Notice it disappears. So I've got midpoints, intersection points, what's referred to as an apparent intersection, extension, geometric center, tangent, quadrant, perpendicular, node, nearest, now parallel, and insertion. These are all what is referred to as object snaps. Now what an object snap does is it creates a little point for you to pick up on. As we get further into things, it will make some of our drawing tasks simpler. But for right now, until we get a little bit more familiar with just how to do some basic drawings, I want you to make sure when you first go in that you uncheck each one of those object snaps. So we don't want any object snaps on. So I'm going to have you uncheck it. And again, make sure that you turn object snaps off. So you can tell it's off because when it's on, if I left click it, it's highlighted. If I left click it again, that shuts it off. Now, object track is kind of a way to follow these snaps and get some additional things. I want you to keep that shut off too, because that's going to really confuse some different confusion until we learn a little bit more. Same thing with ortho and polar. As we learn more about how to use AutoCAD, we'll learn what all of these are and what they mean. Now, I'm also going to go right here where this 3 buttons are. If I left click on that, notice I can go ortho mode and polar tracking. Both of those are clicked. So I'm going to uncheck both of those. So notice how they start to disappear. So I uncheck object snap tracking, uncheck object snap mode. That takes it away. The only thing now that I'm really seeing are my coordinates. So, and as I go, if I come back over here now, notice as I move my cursor around, I am really getting some big numbers in there. And those are the X and Y coordinate. Let me come back over here to that button again. We're gonna just go ahead and it's okay to show those. I'm gonna leave those on so I can see that. And one other thing that I need to do here in my object snap, if I click on that arrow again, I'm going to come right here to where it says settings. So, and we need to be aware of this settings because we need to track something. So the first setting, so we got, again, these different tabs. So we've got preferences. This is where you can change your screen from light to dark. So we've got this polar tracking and the increments. So now polar tracking refers to polar coordinates. Write that down. Polar coordinates. we've already talked about CAD being part of a certain type of a coordinate system. Right now, I would like for you to type in the chat room what that coordinate system is. Who recalls and remembers what we talked about? I'm going to stop my share for just a second here. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I want to go ahead, type in the chat room. I want to know who remembers what I said AutoCAD was. What was the coordinate system that we are using, that AutoCAD uses, that pretty much every CAD system or every CAM system uses to track these X, Y, Z coordinates? What do we call that? Who remembers? Guy by the name, like an old mathematician used to write this down. So, all right, we might need to backtrack a little bit, Mrs. Walter Harris. I think that they've forgotten about this. So let's go back to your math class just a little bit. So if I have my X axis here, I have my Y axis here. That's my 2 dimensions. I can also make this 3 dimensions by having my X, my Y, and then my Z. All of these are axes that I use. Anybody remember what that's called? What's that math system called? All right, looks like I'm going to have to give it to you. So, and here's a clue. Anytime I have to give you an answer like that, that's probably a pretty good guarantee that it's going to show up on a test somewhere. So you might want to make sure that you write this down. This is called the Cartesian coordinate system. Cartesian coordinate system. It is a mathematical system of X points, Y points, different coordinate points that we use. It's called the Cartesian coordinate system. So you all should recall from math class, my origin here is 0, 0. So if I put a point out here in space and I give it a 1, 1, that means that point is 1 inch or whatever unit I've selected. It doesn't have to be inches, but it's 1 unit away and 1 unit up. So it's +1 in the x-axis, +1 in the y-axis from my origin point. Now, mathematics, in your math class, I believe that this quadrant over here is quadrant I, or 1. We have quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. This is the Cartesian coordinate system. So, right now, let's go, let's see, I'm going to, Mr. Dill, I'm going to ask you to come on board here. If quadrant 1 here gives me positive X and positive Y, what does quadrant 2 give me in terms of X and Y?
It would be negative X and positive Y.
Negative X and positive Y. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Dill. Miss Maxie, in quadrant 3, I'm going to call on you now. So in quadrant 3, what do we have in terms of our X and our Y in quadrant 3 now?
Negative X and negative Y.
Negative X and negative Y. So, and Mr. Murphy, I'm going to call on you. That leaves us with quadrant 4. What is our X and Y going to be in quadrant 4?
Can't zoom in.
So need me to zoom in. So come up. So we are in, let me see if I can. All right, so here is my 4 quadrants. In quadrant 1, I am a positive X and a positive Y. Quadrant 2, I'm a negative X and a positive Y. Quadrant 3, I'm a minus X and a minus Y. So what is quadrant 4?
Positive X and negative Y.
Positive X and negative Y. Very good. So you guys already know a lot of this from your math class. Now we're going to be applying this Cartesian coordinate system in CAD when we draw in CAD. It's all based on this Cartesian coordinate system. Now, we also have what's referred to as polar coordinates. So polar coordinates are the rotation about that X and Y. So if I start here with my polar coordinates, I'm at 0 degrees. So this is 0 degrees in my X. Up here is 90 degrees. I've got 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and coming around to the whole other side is 360 degrees. So we also have to know a little bit about these polar coordinates, or the angle on things as we go too. So it's a combination of both the Cartesian coordinate system and the polar coordinate system that we use when we are in AutoCAD. So you're going to have to think about that and apply some of these as we go. Let me go back to sharing the screen again. All right, so when it says in settings that polar tracking, those are the polar coordinates, and we can break that down into several different increments. We can say 15-degree increments, 45-degree, 30-degree, whatever we want. But so here's again all of those object snaps. These are all geometric terms, geometry terms. So you need to kind of know what's an endpoint, what's a midpoint, what's an intersection, what's the center, what's tangent, what's quadrant. We'll go over those. But the main point right here that I want you to know, every drawing that we come into, we have to create these settings here in units. So now units are either metric or imperial. We set that up at the very beginning when we select a drawing. So we will set everything to imperial units. We're not going to use the metric system in here right now, but you'll notice here then when we get into different types of linear units, that's like a line, we've got scientific, decimal, engineering, architectural, or fractional. So for what we're going to be using is decimal. So I'm going to select decimal, and this precision that we work with here, we're going to work with a 3-place, what's referred to as a 3-place decimal. So you will need to set that on each drawing when you create each drawing. And I'll create a tutorial video of us actually setting our drawings up the way we want. Notice here the angular part as well. We've got decimal degrees, degrees, minutes, seconds, gradients, radians. You guys have not gotten into advanced mathematics yet to know what gradients or radians are. Those are calculus type terms when you get into calculus or other upper level math. You might get into some degree, minutes, seconds. Mrs. Walter Harris, do you recall which of the math classes they might discuss degrees, minutes, seconds in?
Probably trig or calculus.
Yeah, trigger calculus there. So for most of what we're drawing, just this decimal degrees is going to be sufficient. So that will be, and a precision. Notice I can set tighter and tighter tolerances. Notice, but we can get into what's referred to as, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decimal places. So that is a real small precision. So I had mentioned that the human hair goes down to 3 decimal places, which would be this one. For angular, and that's what we're working at, our linear precision, but for angular precision, we're just going to keep it at 0. So that will be what you need to have on your settings when we come in to start these drawings. Now, I'm just going to real quick demonstrate some lines. So right here using my line tool, I want to draw a 6-inch line. So I'm going to click on, and that's a left click with my mouse. Notice down here in my command bar, this is called a command bar down here. It kind of tells you, if you pay attention and you watch, it will tell you exactly what you need. So it's wanting the first point. So this is where I'm going to start, and I will type in what that X and Y coordinate is. Now in my case, I want a X coordinate of 1 and a Y coordinate of 1. So I'm going to go Y, or 1 comma 1. So, and then I'll hit enter. Now, I'm not going to be able to see this because it's way far away when I do that. Notice, just with this line, it looks like a real short line, but you notice that that is actually 226 inches long. So we're actually zoomed way out here. And I said I want a 6-inch line. So to do this as a 6-inch line, I'm going to hit the number 6. Notice that's highlighted. Then I'm going to use my tab key and tab over to that degree. So now it's at 14 degrees. I want it to go to my right, which would be 0 degrees. So I'll just type in 0 and then hit enter, and that places the line. Now, notice I am still in the line tool. So it wants me to create another line, which I don't want to. So I'm just going to hit the right click and confirm to get out. And it looks like I haven't done anything. So, well, that's because I need to zoom in on it to actually see. I'm too far out. Now to zoom, I can pan in. I just put my cursor over and use my wheel. Notice as I zoom in there with that wheel on my mouse, I can get closer and closer to that. And we see that that is a 6-inch line. It starts right here at the, my left endpoint is 1 comma 1. So I'm going to click on this line right now. Notice when I click on that line, it highlights both endpoints and the midpoint of that line. So in the chat, so if my left endpoint is 1 comma 1 and it is a 6-inch line, go ahead and type in the chat what you think the X and Y coordinate of the right endpoint is. And while you do that, I'm going to kind of draw this up on the board. So again, I've got here's my origin of X0, Y0. I got this endpoint as 1 comma 1, and I drew a 6-inch long line. So what does that make this endpoint? Mrs. Walter Harris, I'm not seeing what they're typing in the chat room at the moment. So are you seeing what they're typing?
So far, they're typing it right.
All right, so hopefully at this point you guys will recognize all I have to do is add 6 to the X. My Y is the same because it's a horizontal line. So now I'm going to do the same thing here now. Let me hit the escape button. So I've unhighlighted my line. Now, one of the things when you are using AutoCAD, if you're ever unsure, you just want to hit that escape button twice to make sure you backed out and canceled out of the command altogether. So I'm going to come in here right now and I'm going to draw a vertical line. So I'll click on my line. Now, I want that first point to be the same. So again, I will type in 1 comma 1, enter. And now in this case, I'm going to go, notice how my line is showing it's smaller, it's more confined because I've zoomed in, I'm a lot closer. So I'm going to type in 6 because I want this to be a 6-inch line as well. And I'm going to hit the tab button and I'm going to type in 90 degrees because now I want a vertical line. So again, notice I'm still there. It's still in the line command, so it wants the next line to be drawn. So I'm just going to right click and hit confirm to cancel out of that. So now I have the 6-inch vertical line. I want you again in the chat, go ahead and type in what would my coordinates of this point be. So I'll click on this again. So I've got the endpoint, which is the lowest endpoint, or my south endpoint of 1, 1. This is Walter Harris again. I'll ask you, are they getting it right?
So far, they've got it right.
So far, they're getting it right. Very good. So you got this would be 1, 7. So that kind of changes as our X and Y coordinates. So that's good. So I'm glad to see that you guys are going to be able to do that, because we will be able to draw on one of the first assignments that we're going to do is just to kind of draw a series of horizontal and vertical lines. Now, let me escape out of that again twice. Let me come through. I'm going to use the line drawing tool. And now I know what this coordinate up here is. So I will go ahead and type in my first point, which we know is going to be, in this case, 1, 7, enter. And I want this to be a 6-inch line at 0 degrees, because I want that line to go to the right. So 0 degrees is going to create a line to the right. Mrs. Walter Harris, I'm going to ask them what that degree angle should be if they needed to draw that line to the left. So if it's 0 degrees to draw a line to the right, how many degrees would it be to draw a horizontal line to the left? What do you guys think? Go ahead and type that in the chat. What are some of the answers we're getting, Mrs. Walter Harris?
We are getting 180 right now as the consensus.
And 180 would be exactly correct if we wanted to draw that line to the left. In this case, I don't. I do want it to be to the right, because I'm going to kind of just create this square here. So I'll go ahead and keep that at 0 and hit enter. Now, in this case, I don't want to stop my line. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. So again, if I type in 6 and hit tab, notice at 90 degrees, I'll hit enter. So now I've completed and drawn 2 lines there. I'll go ahead and confirm that to exit out. And I have a square that was drawn with 4 lines. It's a 6 by 6 square that was drawn using 4 line segments. Those lines are each what we refer to and call an entity. Let me show you the difference now. I'm going to use my rectangle tool. So I can draw a square using my rectangle tool. So I'm going to left click on that. Again, it's saying the first corner of the rectangle. Well, I'm going to move this. We're going to go to the left of the origin point. So in this case, my first point is going to be -1 in the X, comma 1 in the Y, and I'll hit enter. Now it's wanting those dimensions. So now, notice in this case, I'm given 2 line length dimensions, the X dimension and the Y dimension. So all I have to do now is hit 6 and then tab over to the other one and hit 6 and then hit enter. And I've got a square that is exactly kind of the same as the 4 line tools. It's the same size, 2 different ways to actually draw this. Now, there is a difference though. Notice before, if I come back in here, remember I said about entities and the way AutoCAD looks at this. A square using the line tool is made up of 4 entities. Each one of those lines, there are 4 entities. Using the rectangle tool, it is 1 entity. So 1 entity. And that will make a difference depending on what we're drawing, which one you want to use, especially when we get into some of the modified tools that you might need to kind of use for that. So that is using our rectangle tool. Now, I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to show you here the circle drawing tool. So I click, again, you will left click on the circle drawing tool. Notice down here, this comes up, specify center point for circle or 3P, 2P, tan radius. So you got to kind of know what some of these are. So you might want to write this down. 3P stands for 3 points. 2P stands for 2 points. And this TTR, that's a tangency point, and then a radius. So when we talk about our circles, we're going to be talking about diameters and radiuses, circumference, all of those geometric terms we've got to kind of know and understand. So for right now, I'm just going to come up here and click anywhere. So, and it puts the point. Now I can physically enter that point on anything, on any spot in space. And notice now as I move this in and out, all it needs is a length of, a line length is what you think it is. It's kind of showing a line length, but what is that? You guys go ahead and tell me, do I need to enter a diameter or a radius right now? What is it asking me? What is, you see a 9.714 shown on the screen. Is that a diameter or is that a radius? Go ahead and type in the chat room whether you think that's a diameter or a radius.
We got a mix of answers right now.
We got a mix of answers. That's what I kind of
Yep.
thought. So no consensus yet.
There's one of them maybe over the other, but I'll let a few more answer first.
All right, so we'll wait just another second for a few more to answer.
So the consensus is radius.
The consensus is radius, and that is indeed what it is. So I'm going to draw this at a 6-inch radius. So, and I will type in the number 6 and then hit enter. Now, if I have a 6-inch radius circle, what's the diameter? Go ahead and type in the chat room. What's the diameter of that circle? Are we getting a consensus on this?
Yep.
Yep, so a 6-inch radius is going to give us a 12-inch diameter on that circle. So I'm glad to see that you guys are remembering some of your geometric facts here as far as these shapes go, because that's important. So again, I'm going to demonstrate one more time here to this circle. So I left click on the circle tool. And in this case, I'm going to draw a 12-inch circle. So, and I'm going to place that at 0, 0. So on my origin, I want this to be a 12-inch diameter. So we'll type in 6 as the radius, and there's my 12-inch diameter. So Mrs. Walter Harris, I see a raised hand. So go ahead. Who is iPhone at the moment?
I raised my hand on accident. I was changing my name.
Okay. So you didn't have a question at the moment?
No.
All right. So now I'm also going to go in and create around that circle. So again, 0, tab 0 is the center of the circle. Hit enter, and I will do a 12-inch 12-inch radius, which will give me a 12-inch diameter. Notice right now down in my command bar, it is saying specify radius of circle or diameter. So you can really input either one that you wanted in there. You just have to kind of type a D to change from the radius to the diameter. So I'm going to leave that at radius right now, and I'll place the 12-inch radius. If I do another circle, 0, 0, enter for that coordinate point. And in this case, I'm going to do it at 18. So, all right. So now I want to delete and get rid of these squares. So here's one of the differences with the entity and why sometimes it might be easier to use one drawing tool instead of another. Let me get rid of this circle up here. So I will left click on it. Notice I get all of these 4 points and I get the center of this circle. Who can tell me right now, we talked about these different geometric points or these object snaps, so per se, who can tell me what do you think these 4 squares on this circle are? What is the object snap that these would be? Which one of those do you think, which object snap there do you think would apply to that? Go ahead and type that in, what your thoughts are. This one's probably a little bit more challenging of a question.
We've just got 2 answers so far.
All right, so let's get a couple more answers up there. Hopefully you're all seeing the different object snap selections on the screen. So you guys tell me which one of those object snaps is those 4 squares that are showing up on that circle when I select it.
We've got consensus of one answer, but it's not correct.
It's not correct. Okay, what is the consensus? What is that one answer that they're thinking?
Tangent.
Tangent. So,
And then now they're changing it to the correct.
all right. So, yeah, that's not a, those aren't tangent, although certainly we could have a line that's tangent at each of those points, or we could have another circle that's tangent at each of those points. But hopefully by now you're starting to recognize the object snap that is shown here with these 4 squares is actually the quadrant. So that is the quadrant. We've got 4 different quadrants. Again, this is 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 360 degrees. Those are the quadrants on there. I only did that as a demo. I don't need that circle, so I'm going to delete that off of there. So we'll delete that out. So I just click on that entity and I hit the delete button. So I'm going to delete this square that I created using the draw rectangle, and I'm going to delete it. So now I'm also going to delete this square that's 4 lines. Now notice, in order to do this, I would have to select each individual line and delete each one. Now notice in this app how it kind of goes from one line to the other. If I hit the shift key and hold the shift key at the same time, then I can highlight all of those to delete. So that's one method that we can use. So, and I will delete that out of there. There are a couple other methods that I'll go over in the future. I'm going to let you guys play around with it. Some of you may find out and discover that on some of those other methods on your own. But I've now deleted that out, and we have a bullseye on here. So this is our bullseye. So one of the other assignments is I'm going to give you some specifications, and you're going to draw a bullseye at the exact coordinate points that I want you to put that on. So make sure that you're reading the instructions carefully. Now, I'm going to go back for just a second. Notice up here, I have an undo and a redo button. So we also have the zoom extents, and we have a zoom window. So we'll go ahead. Let me go back to the undo button. So now I'll undo again, and I can place those back on just by using the undo or redo button to kind of take those out. All right, let's talk about this zoom window right now. If I wanted to zoom in on that square, I could select the zoom window. I come right over here to where I want to zoom. I hit my left button and I hold it while I create a window. And then I click over and notice it will zoom in. So let me go back. I hit the zoom extents and it takes me back. So a couple of different ways that you can use zoom, and now I'm starting to kind of get some of that delay. So yeah, now it's kind of jumping all around on me. So let's just go back. I'll type in the command zoom and notice I get several different selections here. I can zoom all, I can zoom center, I can zoom dynamic. I'm just going to say zoom all right now, and it'll bring me back. Now be careful when you do this, because I'm going to create a line. So, and I'm going to create a line at my first coordinate point. Let's say I actually made a mistake and set that first line, that first point at 180,0, and it was a 6-inch line at 0 degrees as well. And we'll cancel out of that and confirm that. Now, if I place a point or a line or something else way out of my viewing window, watch what happens when I go zoom all. So it zooms me way, way out, and it shows that line all the way over here that I drew by mistake as well. So be careful with that. Let's delete that out. Now I can do the zoom all again. So type in zoom and hit A for all, and it'll zoom back in. So just a couple of the ways that we can interact with this. So let me stop sharing for a moment. Come back in. So we'll go into for today and by the end of tomorrow. So you guys will be able to access the web app at any time. There are going to be some assignments on there. One is the lines assignment, where you just use lines to draw some horizontal and vertical lines. I'm going to give you exact coordinate points, so I want you to make sure that you use those exact coordinate points. And remember to save those files using our file naming system and save them exactly like I tell you in the assignment. We're going to create a bullseye. The bullseye is going to have a set center point and set radiuses for each of those so you can draw a bullseye. Then we're going to also practice, we're going to draw a cement block. So we're going to draw a cement block, and there'll be 2 other simple drawings there, simple 2-dimensional drawings. So you'll have a total of 5 assignments on there to get done between now and the next class. Shouldn't take you too long to get these taken care of and done. And of course, if you're having problems, you definitely want to do them before we come back to class, because that way at the next class, we can talk about what you might have done wrong or what the keying sequence was that may have been causing you some problems, to get those taken care of and turned in. Of course, if you want to, at any point, you can also shoot Mrs. Walter Harris or I an email. And if you're really, really struggling with it and having some problems, and we'll be glad to set up a Zoom schedule to kind of walk you through and watch and see what you're doing, and maybe give you some direct feedback on what you need to do to use the AutoCAD app to get that drawing correct. So that is what I have for you today. We went through a lot. So I have recorded this video, so I will make it available so you can watch it again if you need to. So if you need to watch it again, I believe that it's recording and we should still have it. So you'll be able to watch this over again to kind of refresh your memory on what some of those tools are that we covered in this particular session. So does anyone have any questions for me or Mrs. Walter Harris at this time? Mrs. Walter Harris, do you have anything that you would like to add for the class before we let them go?
The biggest thing is remember that we use the delete button, not the backspace. You guys are used to using the backspace button. there is a very smaller button that actually has the word delete on it. And that's the one you're going to use to get rid of those images if you made a mistake and need to delete anything off.
Yeah, so keying sequence is very, very important and critical, and each of these keys has a specific task to and has a specific purpose. So that's probably going to be one of the hardest things about using AutoCAD that you have to get used to is the step-by-step keying sequence, or that sequential sequence that you have to use in order to get these drawings done. So, all right. That's all that I have. I think we've covered quite a bit today. So if you guys have anything else that you would like to ask, or if you wanted to talk with either one of us privately before you go, just go ahead and hang on. I'll stay here on the Zoom session for a little bit to answer any questions if anybody has any that they want. Otherwise, you are free to go ahead and go and look for those assignments to start showing up in Google Classroom.
Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good day. All right, Josh, you got any questions for us? Are you still with us there, Josh? Oh. All right. So,
Josh went away for a minute.
I think so.